She gave her only scarf to a soaked stranger, not knowing he was a billionaire running from betrayal. She had warmth. He had the power to change her life. And that night, everything began to change. Welcome to Hearts and Billions, where the rich meet the broken, and one moment changes everything. Love, loss, redemption, all in one story. Subscribe to feel every heartbeat. The rain came down like the sky was broken. Rhea didn't have an umbrella, just a too-thin hoodie, soaked through before she'd even made it halfway home. Her daughter, Mina, clung to her side beneath a grocery bag-turned rain cover. The two of them moved quickly, splashing through puddles, dodging headlights on the dim street. She was exhausted. 2 jobs, 1 toddler. 0 backup, but she kept walking. Mina sniffled. "Mommy, my shoes are squishy." "I know, baby," Rhea said softly. "We're almost home." As they turned the corner near a dark, empty auto repair shop, Rhea noticed something. A man. He was sitting on the curb, curled under a flickering streetlight, completely drenched. His coat was torn. His shoes were muddy. His face, half hidden by wet hair, was pale, but his eyes were open and empty. She slowed down. Most people would have kept walking. Some already had. She looked down at Mina. "Sweetheart." "1 second, okay?" Mina nodded. Rhea approached the man slowly, careful not to startle him. "Sir, are you all right?" No answer, just the sound of water dripping from the brim of his coat. "Do you need help?" she asked again gently. He looked up just for a second, and in that second Rhea saw something strange. This man wasn't drunk, or lost, or crazy. He looked like someone who had just lost everything. Rhea sighed. She had so little, but something inside her whispered, "If you walk away, who else will stop?" She unwrapped the scarf from her own neck, her father's old scarf, and crouched beside him. "Here," she said, placing it on his shoulders. "At least cover your neck. You'll get sick." Still no words, only his eyes, softening just a little. Then she did something that even surprised herself. She handed him the small umbrella she had borrowed from her boss. And then, with a breath, she said, "If you don't have anywhere to go, I have soup on the stove and a couch that doesn't complain." He blinked, slowly. Finally he whispered, "Why?" She smiled, tired but sincere. "Because the world's cold enough without people being cold, too." Mina tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, he can have my bear if he's sad." Rhea looked at the man. "We don't have much, but we don't let people freeze." The man slowly stood. He didn't speak again, but he followed her home. That night, Rhea let a stranger into her world, not knowing he was worth billions, not knowing he was running from betrayal, not knowing he was the man who would change everything. The apartment was small, barely 2 rooms, and the second one was more closet than bedroom, but it was warm. Rhea hurried. Inside first, flipping the light switch. It flickered once, then held. She kicked off her wet shoes, helped Mina peel off her damp jacket, and turned toward the man still standing in the doorway. He looked out of place, not because he was soaked or silent, but because even now, something about him felt too still, like he'd been through a storm far worse than the one outside. "Come in," she said softly. "I'll get you a towel." He hesitated. His eyes scanned the walls, faded paint, second-hand furniture, a broken heater humming in the corner. Still, he stepped in. Rhea handed him a towel and pointed to the bathroom. "It's small, but it works. Dry off, I'll find you something clean." He nodded, no words, just that same quiet look. While he was inside, Rhea rummaged through a box under her bed. Her father's old clothes still sat there, neatly folded, never touched since the funeral. She found a sweater, worn but soft, and a pair of pajama pants with drawstrings. Mina peeked up at her from the couch. "Is he staying?" Rhea paused. "Just tonight." "Why?" "Because he looked like someone who needed a door to open." Mina thought about it, then nodded. "Okay." When the man returned, dressed in the clothes she gave him, he looked different. Still tired, still broken, but human again. She handed him a bowl of soup. "It's just tomato and noodles, but it's hot." He took it slowly, sat on the couch, and stared at the steam. Mina sat cross-legged on the rug, watching cartoons quietly. The glow from the TV lit up her sleepy face. The man took 1 sip, then another, then stopped. "Thank you," he said at last. His voice was rough, like it hadn't been used in days. "You're welcome," Ria replied, settling into a nearby chair. "Do you have a name?" He looked at her, thought for a long moment, then whispered, "Call me Nick." Ria smiled. "I'm Ria, that's Mina." Mina waved.
Hi, Nick.
Nick gave a small nod, and for the first time that day, Ria saw it. A flicker of something fragile and precious in his eyes. Not relief, not safety, but hope. She didn't know who he really was. She didn't care. He was cold, and she had warmth to give. That night, while Mina slept in her bed, and Ria curled up with a blanket in the chair, Nick sat quietly in the dark, the scarf still around his neck, the bowl empty, and a single tear running down his face. Because for the first time in years, someone had saved him. It was past midnight, and the apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the space heater and the occasional creak of old wood settling. Nicholas sat stiffly on the worn couch, wrapped in a faded checkered blanket. He hadn't said more than 10 words since arriving, but his eyes hadn't stopped watching, not suspiciously, almost longingly. Across the small living room, Ria knelt beside her daughter, Mina, tucking her into a blanket on the floor mattress. Mina's cheeks were still pink from the cold, but her eyes sparkled with warmth. Warmth, as she whispered, "Is he gonna be okay, Mummy?" Ria smiled gently. "I think so, baby." Nicholas heard that, and it hit him harder than expected. Mommy. Not ma'am, not lady. Mummy. She wasn't just kind. She was someone's whole world. He looked away. A few minutes later, small feet pattered over to the couch. Mina, clutching her favorite toy, a one-eyed teddy bear named Mr. Buttons, stood in front of him. "I don't know if you have one," she said, holding the bear up, "but you can sleep with mine tonight. He helps me not feel scared." Nicholas stared at the little bear, then at her. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. No words. Just tears. He hadn't cried since his mother's funeral, but here he was, brought to silence by a child's gesture. Ria noticed from the kitchen and stepped closer, alarmed. "Hey, are you all right?" Nicholas blinked quickly, wiping his cheek before the tear could fall. "She gave me her bear." "She does that," Ria said, her voice soft. "Only when she really likes someone." Nicholas laughed under his breath, barely a sound. "She's something." "She is," Ria agreed. "And she doesn't do it because she expects anything back. She just gives, like her dad used to." There was a silence, a weight in the air. Nicholas looked at Ria for a long time. "You're doing an incredible job," he said quietly. Ria blinked, surprised. No one had told her that in years. "Thanks," she said. "Some days I'm just trying to make it to bedtime." Nicholas nodded slowly. "I know what that feels like, in a different way." She tilted her head. "You have kids?" "No," he answered quickly, too quickly. Then added, "But I've lost people." Another silence, but this one wasn't uncomfortable. It was understanding. That night, Nicholas didn't sleep much. He held Mr. Buttons in his hands, staring at the ceiling. He kept thinking about the little girl, the mother, the warmth in this tiny apartment. He thought about everything he'd built, his empire, his company, the billions in his account, and how it had never felt this real. And somewhere in the dark, with a stuffed bear by his side, a billionaire began to feel human again. Nicholas didn't sleep much that night. The couch was small, the blanket was thin, but it wasn't the discomfort that kept him awake. It was Ria. He watched her through the half-open bedroom door as she gently tucked her daughter in bed, kissed her forehead and whispered a lullaby. Her voice was soft, worn, tired, but full of love. No cameras, no staff, no applause. Just a mother doing her best with almost nothing. The next morning, he woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of clinking spoons. Ria was already dressed, tying her hair up with a faded ribbon as she packed a tiny lunchbox. Mina sat at the table drawing with crayons on a grocery receipt. Ria smiled when she saw him. "You like eggs?" "I've only got 2, but we can share." He tried to protest, but she'd already split the plate. She poured him coffee in a chipped mug that read. Nicholas looked around the apartment. Peeling paint, a cracked heater, toys carefully mended with tape. The curtains were hand-sewn. The fridge had one working shelf. The calendar on the wall had rent due circled twice. This wasn't poverty. This was survival. And through it all, Ria never once complained. She hummed as she packed Mina's school bag. She wiped the counter with a threadbare rag. She even offered him clean socks when she noticed his was soaked. Nicholas felt something unfamiliar. Shame. He'd signed million-dollar deals without blinking, owned 5 homes, flown first class without ever noticing the stewardess's name. And yet this woman, with nothing but grit and grace, had fed him, clothed him, and made him feel human. Later that afternoon, when she left for her shift at the diner, Nicholas stayed behind to help Mina with her coloring. She drew a house, big with flowers and a smiling sun. He asked, "Is that your home?" She giggled. "No, that's Mommy's dream house. She draws it on napkins sometimes." Nicholas stared at the drawing. A lump rose in his throat, because in that moment he realized something. He'd been building empires. She'd been building hope. The next morning, after another night on her tiny couch, Nicholas quietly watched Ria as she moved about her small kitchen. Her robe was fraying at the sleeves. Her daughter's laughter came from the other room, echoing against the worn walls like music in a palace. There was something beautiful about how she turned nothing into warmth. Ria didn't know his name. She didn't know that the man sipping coffee from her chipped mug had once stood in Forbes magazine. She just saw a man, a quiet, broken man, and she treated him like one of her own. Nicholas hadn't felt this safe in years, and that terrified him. As Ria picked up her purse to head to work, she froze when she saw the stack of money on her tiny dining table. $100 bills, neatly stacked, more than she'd made in 3 months. She turned slowly. Nicholas stood behind her, silent, his hands in his pockets. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said softly. "For everything." Her expression hardened. She walked over, calmly picked up the money, and held it out to him. "I didn't do this for that," she said. "I didn't bring you into my home for this." Nicholas looked shocked. "Ria, please. It's not charity. You need it." "That's not the point," she said, voice firm but gentle. "I'm not a project. I'm not a cause." He took the money from her slowly, not knowing what to say. "I helped you," she added, "because you looked like you needed someone to see you." She smiled, though her eyes glistened. "Sometimes we all need that." Nicholas stood there, stunned. All his life, money had been a language everyone understood. It had opened doors, bought apologies, silenced anger. But not here. Wallpaper and the smell of cinnamon toast. Here, kindness wasn't a transaction. It was a choice. And she had chosen him without knowing anything about him. For the first time, Nicholas felt something shift deep in his chest. Maybe he had more to learn from this woman than he thought. The man never told Ria his name, and Ria never asked. She called him Mr. Raincoat, half-jokingly at first. But the name stuck, not because of what he wore, but because of how he came into their lives. Quiet, dripping wet, and full of secrets. For 2 weeks, he stayed in the small spare room at the back of Ria's apartment. He fixed the loose hinge on her door, rewired her old toaster, repaired the broken leg on Mina's toy table. But still, he said little. One morning, as Ria poured coffee and Mina colored in a cereal box maze, she finally asked, "Why don't you tell me who you are?" He looked up from the kitchen table, where he was folding Mina's laundry. His voice was low. "Does it matter?" Ria shrugged. "I guess not. You're helpful. You don't eat too much. And Mina thinks you're magical." He almost smiled. Later that evening, as rain tapped softly against the window again, he surprised her by speaking first. "Why do you call me Mr. Raincoat?" Ria paused, then leaned against the doorframe. "Because you showed up when everything felt heavy, like the sky was falling. I didn't know who you were, but something about you made me stop." She looked him in the eye. "You made the rain feel less lonely." He didn't reply. But that night, after Mina went to bed, he stood at the window for a long time, just watching the storm roll by in silence. And for the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a CEO, not as a billionaire, but as a man. Just a man, with a borrowed scarf and a name no one asked for. Nicholas sat in the back seat of his luxury car, the city's skyline blurring past his window. But he wasn't thinking about stocks, or code, or quarterly reports. He was thinking about Ria, the way she tied her daughter's shoes with one hand, while stirring soup with the other. The way she hummed quietly when she thought no one was listening. The way her eyes carried sadness, strength, and hope all at once. He had the power to change her life overnight. But if he simply wrote her a check or gave her a house, he knew she'd say no. She wasn't someone who wanted handouts. She wanted dignity. So Nicholas had a better idea. The next day, he made a call to Crosstech Solutions, a company under his umbrella, but one where no one knew what he looked like. He instructed HR to keep an eye out for a new resume he would personally deliver. Then he asked Ria for something unexpected. "Would you mind if I helped fix up your resume?" he said one evening casually. "I used to do hiring years ago." Ria hesitated. "Why?" "Because the world needs more people like you in offices that matter." She chuckled. "I haven't updated it in years." "Then let's start there." He stayed up late that night, fine-tuning her experience, highlighting her multitasking as management strength, her time juggling 2 jobs as scheduling expertise, her budgeting skills as financial efficiency. He framed her real life like the masterpiece it was. Then he quietly submitted it. 1 week later, Ria received a call. "You've been shortlisted for a support role at Crosstech Solutions," the voice said. "We were very impressed." Ria blinked. I didn't even apply." "Your resume came highly recommended. Please come in on Monday." On Monday, she stood in front of the towering glass building, clutching Mina's lucky coin. Her hands trembled. She hadn't worn office shoes in years. She walked in, unsure, terrified. But when she sat across from the panel, something changed. They didn't see a single mom from the struggling part of town. They saw competence, warmth, strength. She spoke honestly. She smiled. She nailed it. When she got the job, offer more than double her old salary, she cried on the bus ride home. She had no idea. The man who made it happen was the same man she once gave soup to in the rain. And he was watching from the lobby, hidden behind dark sunglasses and a quiet smile. Ria's heels tapped nervously against the glossy marble floor of the office lobby. She'd never been inside a place like this. Everything shimmered, glass walls, gold-trimmed elevators, and a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a palace. A security guard politely nodded and handed her a visitor badge that read, "Crosstech Admin Candidate, Ria Collins." She clutched her folder tightly. It still didn't feel real. Just days ago, she was wiping tables and folding clothes in a laundromat. Now, she was starting a new job in a tech firm she'd never even dared to dream of. As she entered the 14th floor hallway, something caught her eye. A portrait. A tall man in a sharp grey suit. Soft eyes, familiar. She stepped closer. There were more portraits. Board members, founders, executives. Their names printed beneath in sleek silver. But then she froze. Nicholas Carr, CEO. Her heart slammed in her chest. She stared at the photo. Her breath caught. It was him. Mr. Raincoat. The quiet man she'd taken in. The one who never told her his name. Her scarf had been on that man's shoulders. He had slept on her couch. She backed away from the portrait, dizzy. Was this some kind of joke? She stormed toward the reception desk on the executive floor. "I need to speak with Mr. Carr now." The assistant, startled by her sudden intensity, checked the schedule. He's free for a few minutes. "Do you have an appointment?" Ria just said, "He'll know me." Seconds later, the elevator doors opened. Nicholas looked up from his desk as the assistant knocked. Then the door opened fully, and Ria stepped in. Their eyes met. His expression shifted from calm to guilt. She held up her eye. Nicholas stood slowly. "Ria," she cut him off. "You sat in my home. You ate my food. You let my daughter give you her only teddy bear. And you were this the entire time?" "I didn't lie," he said softly. "I just didn't tell you who I was." She laughed bitterly. "That's the same thing, Nicholas." Silence. Then he walked around the desk, stopped a few feet away, and said quietly, "I didn't want you to see the billionaire. I wanted you to see me." Ria stared at him. Part of her wanted to cry. Part of her wanted to run. But a deeper part remembered the man on the curb, the one who shivered in silence, who had nothing when she met him. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real version of him after all. She didn't say a word. She just turned and walked out, The elevator doors opened to a floor lined with glass walls and polished floors. Ria's heart raced. Her heels echoed as she walked past portraits of powerful-looking men and women, framed quotes and gold plaques. And then she saw it, a black-and-white photograph mounted on the wall. The same eyes, the same quiet presence, the man from the rain. Only now, he was in a tuxedo, shaking hands with world leaders. Under the photo, the caption read, "Nicholas Carr, founder and CEO, Cartech Innovations." Ria stopped walking. Her breath caught. Mina's Mr. Raincoat was a billionaire. She stormed past confused employees and straight into his office. Nicholas looked up from his desk. For a moment he smiled, genuinely happy to see her, until he saw her face. "You lied to me," she said. Her voice was shaking, not with fear but hurt. "You stood in my home, ate my food, slept on my couch, and you let me believe you were just lost." Nicholas stood silent. She held up the job offer letter in her hand. "Was this your way of saying thank you? A secret handout to the poor girl who gave you soup?" "No," he said quickly. "Ria, no. You weren't a charity to me." "Then what was I?" He walked around the desk. His expression was different now, unguarded. "You were the first person in years who didn't want anything from me. You saw a stranger and gave me warmth, not because of my name or my money. You helped me when I was just a man in the rain." Ria's eyes welled up. "I don't want your guilt," she whispered. Nicholas stepped closer. "This isn't guilt. It's gratitude and—" He paused. Maybe hope." Ria turned to leave. But just before she reached the door, Nicholas said softly, "Do you know what my life was like before that night? Cold, empty, full of people who smiled with lies and shook hands with knives." He looked down. "You and Mina reminded me what it's like to feel human again." Ria didn't say a word, but she didn't leave either. And in that silence, something changed, not just between them, but inside them. After the media storm and the sleepless nights, Nicholas finally returned to her door. This time not in the rain, but in a crisp suit box. Ria opened the door slowly. "You're back." "I never really left," he said. He didn't propose love, not yet. He offered something else. "Let's build something together. A program, a shelter, a future for single moms like you, not out of pity, but because I've never admired anyone more." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I'm ready." He smiled. "That's okay. Neither am I, but maybe we can figure it out together." She took his hand, and the woman who once gave a stranger a scarf now had someone willing to give her the world. The peace didn't last long. One morning, Ria opened her window to let in the breeze and froze. Across the street, cameras, reporters, microphones. She backed away slowly, heart pounding. Mina was still asleep, curled up with her new teddy bear. There was a knock on the door. Nicholas stood there, serious but calm. A black SUV idled behind him, guarded. "They found out," he said softly. Ria's hands trembled. "How?" "A security guard at the company leaked photos of us. They're everywhere." And they were online, on news blogs, in magazines. Billionaire seen visiting crumbling apartment in Lower Westridge. "Oh, who is the woman holding Nicholas Carr's heart?" Ria felt sick. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I didn't want any of this." Nicholas gently held her hands. "You didn't ask, and you don't deserve to be exposed like this. I'll make it stop." "But can you?" she asked. He looked at her for a long time. "I'll try, and if I can't stop them, I'll stand in front of you, every single time." That afternoon, Nicholas held a press conference. No stage, no drama, just a plain podium and a microphone. He said one sentence. "What I do with my heart is nobody's business but mine. Please leave her and her daughter in peace." Then he walked away. He never answered another question. That night, the streets outside Ria's home grew quiet. And for the first time in weeks, Ria sat by her window, holding Mina, not afraid of what tomorrow would bring. Nicholas didn't bring flowers. He brought plans, blueprints, dreams. "Ria," he said, unrolling a large sheet on her kitchen table, "this is a shelter I want to build. For single moms, for women like you. Strong women who just need a little light." She stared in disbelief. "You want me to help with this? I want you to run it with me, build it, shape it." You know what they need more than I ever could." She touched the edge of the paper. Her hands trembled. "I can't pay you back for what you gave me," he said, "but I can give you a life where you never have to worry again." Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded and whispered yes.